Welcome back to another battle report, folks. And before we get kicked off, if you're seeing this report around about the time of release and you've not yet gone to the Flames of War website, have a look. They've got a new missions pack up there with lots of really interesting missions. I don't know when we'll play them. We might wait until we can play face to face because they are quite new. But have a look, guys, because I think you'll find a lot of interesting ideas in there. So we're back on the Russian front. We are crossing rivers again. In the last game, you remember my hero motor rifles came up against Peter with his grenadiers. I didn't cross the river in that game. I took an objective but didn't cross the river. In this game, you're going to have to cross the river. This is the next one in the list of games for the suggested campaign. We're not doing it as a linked campaign. We want to play each game as it is presented as a one-off game, so we get a feel for the missions before we start messing about by changing rules for reserves and such like, dependent on the result of the previous mission. We want to play these as you find them. Playing Brian again, by the way, at a distance, as always. So, in this game, the objectives are going to be over there, so I've got to get over the river. I'll lay out all the deployment zones using the markers next. But let's go to the lists. So I am attacking with a hero shock rifle formation and an ordinary non-special, shall we say, T-34-85 formation. I don't have the Storm group in the hero shock rifles this time. I've changed things around quite a bit. We've got 2 platoons of 13 bases plus Commissar, a hero SMG platoon with a flamethrower attached because these guys are going to have to get up close and personal, so a flamethrower could be useful. Then we've got 6 heavy machine guns, 6 mortars and 6 heavy mortars. Nothing else in the way of artillery and company command. And then I have T-34-85s. Now these guys are aggressive in the same way as the heroes are, but their skill rating is 5, which means shooting and scooting, blitzing is probably not on, and assaulting is not so good either, because they're assaulting on a 5 up. But they've got a company command, a platoon of 5, and a platoon of 6. Over here, Brian was quite interested in spinning something off the beach defence company that he used for the airfield mission, but instead of maximising it, minimising it and seeing what support we could bring along. So he's got 2 platoons, and that's the ordinary rifle MG, so they're 4 points each, though one has got a Shrek added with an odd point kicking about. Heavy machine guns, mortars, heavy mortars, and 3 Pak 40s. These guys are all trained level, and hit on a 3 up. And then in support, they've got a Panzer Grenadier company, and that's with 2 short platoons. They've got no upgrades or anything because there was no points to spare. 4 Panzer IVs and 3 flat tops, 3 Panzer 470Vs. Now they're going to be on the table at the start with these guys, and then they are going to be coming in from reserve. So the kind of idea is these guys may be flung into the line, they're maybe just regrouping or training, so they're not the most experienced unit, and they're being told to hold on, there's your help, and these guys are going to come right into the rescue. And then these guys are just been told to get in there, get over that river and secure the positions on the other side. So there's the table, there's the lists. I shall lay out all the deployments and then get back to you for turn 1. Let's have a look at the mission. So it's river crossing, special rules, delayed reserves, river assault. You'll note there is no ambush. So the defender doesn't get an ambush in this, which is very unusual. the mission is described, we're not playing it in the way it's described as far as placing the river goes, but the way it's described is you place a river in the middle of the table somewhere, and then the attacker places the bridge and the defender places a bridge. In this game we are going with sort of pre-set up terrain, but it sounds to me as though you could play this game on any table and you maybe just move terrain. It doesn't say that, but the way it's written, it suggests that the everything's on the table and the river goes down and then you choose where the bridges are going to go. But you can maybe give me your thoughts on that, folks. Deployment in this game is weird. You'll notice there's no attacker deployment zone as such, just defenders, and they can be 4 inches on the other side of the river. Attackers cannot be within 16 inches of an enemy team or 8 inches off the river. That's the key part. Otherwise they can go back in here any way they want, which as an attacker is very handy for placing your supporting weapons such as artillery. If you've got static weapons like anti-tank guns, you can get them in position where they can start shooting. But you cannot start within shot range. And then we've got the typical objective zone in here. So there's quite a lot there, guys. Please refer to the book and you'll probably get a better understanding than you would listening to me. But I'll go over to the deployment as it is. You can see the 8 inch by 8 inch in from the edges deployment zone for the objectives. We're taking 8 inches back as being the furthest point back from the river. We're not making it a wobbly zone. We'll just keep it straight. We don't have a straight river, we've got a nice wobbly river. So I've got 3 objectives to place. So I put one here, and one in that building which is inside the corner of the objective deployment zone. And then Brian's got, in reserve, he's got his Panzer Grenadiers and his Panzer IVs, so everything else is on the table. We'll start to place his Panzer IVs because we just realised he doesn't get an ambush, which has come as a bit of a shock to him. So let's start over here. He's got a platoon of infantry here. They can cover anything which is coming over the ford towards that objective. Panzer 470Vs, which can fire out across here but still move over towards the town if required. They may be required. He's got a platoon of infantry in the wood through the house and then on the other side, so they're really quite strung out. But that was because of my ranged in markers being over here. Brian's not bothered with pre-ranged in markers, and he's just going to slap them down wherever I move to, or when he knows my artillery is, just move on to it. And then he's got a heavy machine gun platoon, 2 bases in the top story of this, and 2 bases there, mortars over there, and his anti-tank guns he's going to place around here somewhere. Company command is here, in a position to support the heavy machine guns and the infantry platoon. So I cannot be within 16 inches of these guys. Right, so when it comes to my deployment, what you can see I've done is I'm out with 8 inches off the river. These guys are more than 8 inches away, but I can't put everybody through that gap at once. The heavy machine guns, one slid down, but they're 16 inches away, more than 16 inches away from those guys, as are the T-34s. T-34s being more than 16 inches away from those mortars. So my deployment in general terms is scout platoon, hero shot rifle platoon, heavy machine guns on the forward slope. The mortars have actually forgot to place them, but they're just going to go here, so they've got line of sight over there, but they're not too in line of sight of them, not too exposed to them, sorry. Rifle platoon in here, heavy mortars, company command hanging about, 5 T-34s, company command, 6 T-34s. So what happens next, well, I'm going to see where Brian puts his anti-tank guns and then I may move these guys, but we'll see. I think it's just charge, to be honest. Charge or just shoot, because everything can shoot everything just about at the start of this game. It's quite an in-your-face game. It looks really, really tricky for Brian over here. But we'll see we'll see. He could pin me in a winner and that would be the end of it. Or his pack 40s could take out a whole platoon in one go, because they're only trained, so we'll see. It's quite a new mission to us, folks. Hopefully it'll be an interesting game. Sorry, I forgot to mention, a river is flowing that way. That's an ordinary bridge and that's a ford. So the mission. Now, this mission's a wee bit different from other missions. First of all, the defender doesn't get an ambush, which is quite unusual. They've got delayed reserves, and that's it. Really, that's the only special rule for them. And the attackers, the special rule is assault boats. Now, the river is running this way. That's a bridge, and that's a ford. The deployment zone is, once again, it's a bit weird. These guys don't have a deployment zone as such. They just have minimum distances that they can be. These guys have a deployment zone which is 4 inches beyond the river. In this case, we're going to say it's like 4 inches. It's going to follow the river, be within 4 inches of the edge of the river. But Brian's decided he's not going to do that. He's going to stay on this side. And then the deployment zone for the objectives is 8-inch blocks. When I say 8 inch, I mean 8 inches in from the side and from the river, from the back edge, from the edges basically. And the edges being defined by the river at the front. And I've got 3 objectives to place in this game, which is going to stretch Brian even more. Got one here, I've got one round there, and one there. Now I put my pre-arranged in markers down on the objectives, as you do. And that's going to be likely to be my main focal point, is the town. Just because there's so many buildings I can potentially get into covering. This side is much more open. So I've got one there, one there. Brian has deployed pretty much in front of that. You can see he's got a line infantry along here. They're pretty strung out, so he's got to be careful for command. Heavy machine guns in that house, and to the side, mortars and pack 40s. Then over here, a platoon of infantry ready to challenge anything that comes over the ford, but he's got options of maybe helping with an objective over there. As you can see, he's not put it straight on top of the objective. 3 Panzer 470Vs, which have got a very long reach. They can hit just about anything, and within a blitz move, I reckon they'll be able to start hitting me. Then you've got heavy mortars over here. He's not put his ranged in markers down because I'm going to be moving forward. He wants to see where I move to. He'd rather pin my guys moving forward than take on infantry. Take on my artillery at the moment. But we'll see what happens in that respect. So my deployment is, remember, 8 inches back from the river, or 16 inches, or more than 16 inches back from enemy teams. So they're 8 inches back from the river. They're a bit further back just because not everyone's getting over that ford in one go. You notice I said getting over the ford and not getting any boats. These guys, one keeps sliding down, but they're on the front facing slope of that hill, just over 16 inches away from the guys in the wood. These mortars are actually in the wrong place. They need to be over there. I'll sort them in a minute. In the woods, company command, and that's the ordinary hero shock rifle platoons. Company command, heavy mortars, and then the T-34s. So I'm just going head on. I think it's a river crossing, you know. Everything's channeled through one approach, or in this case 2 approaches, but it's all channeled right away through, which tends to end up with a bit of a Mexican standoff in one way or another. So you can see Brian's got his pack 40s there while I'm saying to hang with this. I'm just going to shoot him. I'll probably lose a few T-34s, but once they're done, my survivors can move over, get into the town with some infantry support. We'll see how it goes. And then Brian really needs his reserves on without delay. Now he's got 4 units in reserve. He's got tanks, 2 Panzergrenadier plus company command, and it's delayed reserves. That can be really tricky when you've got 4 units in reserve, especially delayed reserve, because you imagine that technically speaking could take until turn 7 to get all of them on. You know, so having lots of units in reserve can be a bit dodgy. I learned that through playing British in the desert. They can have so many units of 3 tanks, for instance. They might never even get on the table. But we'll see how this goes. If it gets to turn 7, it's a very, very different kind of mission. So we'll see what happens. I'll come back at the end of turn 1. Soviet turn 1. So, movement. So, there wasn't a lot of movement. These guys moved up to the riverbank, and yes, folks, I'm going to do it. But here's the thing. There's nothing in the rules about this, but we're going to play that I can't drift further down than the ford, because the boat would just lodge on the ford. I mean, that's the whole thing about a ford, that, you know, like, you can drive over it. So if I drift that far down, I'll just stop there. That's if I get over, it'll probably just kill me. These guys advanced up, just taking a tactical and tried to follow me, and it didn't work. Yeah, these guys managed to follow me just to get up to the riverbank. And then that was it for movement, so I came down to shooting. So, there's only one casualty marker there, as you can see. So what happened, right, was both mortars ranged in, hitting the guns a total of 5 times. They all saved. Then the platoons fired 10 of them, 10 dice each, needing 6s, I got 4 hits, and they all saved, which was quite remarkable. So they'll bring the pain next turn. At least I am in cover. One mortar got killed in the barrage. Then the heavy machine guns fired at Brian's heavy machine guns got 8 hits, but once again, no fails. So that's not bad. Not a bad turn for Brian there at all. So over to Germans for their turn 1. They're not rolling for reserves yet, but you can give some payback if unpinning would help. And then he's also got his flat tops over here. We'll see what they can do with their 40-inch range against those T-34s. Brian's turn 1. So no reserves this turn. As far as unpinning goes, the mortars and the heavy machine guns unpinned, but the Bag Forest didn't. Then to get these guys a blitz move to be in range of the T-34s over there. And he rolled a 2. So we had to just, it took more than a blitz move and got them over beside these guys because he's worried about my guys crossing the river. So it's not going good so far, but then in shooting, 3 shots. Normally it's a 3 hit, my guys, but the range and concealment and the failed blitz puts it to a 6. He got no hits. The Pack 40s, because they didn't unpin, only 3 shots. However, they did get a hit and they managed to kill one. But then Brian went from rubbish to brutal from my perspective. Heavy machine guns killed 4 bases in that platoon in 1 turn of shooting. That was only 3 of them. And then the other infantry beside the heavy machine guns also got a base. The heavy mortars ranged in over here and got a kill. And then the medium mortars ranged in over here and got a kill. So not so good for the armoured stuff, but my infantry are already, I mean, that's a third of that platoon gone in 1 go, and they're exposed out in the open with nowhere to go. So, can't afford to lose an infantry platoon this quick. We'll see what happens in turn 2. Before we do a review of turn 2, I'm hitting the boats. It's probably suicide. I'm going far too early in this game, to be honest. I'm going into the full teeth of Brian's very, very secure defences. But anyway, they're going to go. Right, so that's 3 teams to a boat. So that's who's going in what. Drifting. So 1 or 2 is 4. 3 or 4 is 8. And then we've got 12 and 16. No, I don't think we'll drift down that far. So, first lot gets a 5. So they're going to go 12 inches down. Next lot, with the company command, gets a 2, so they're 4 inches down. And then the last lot gets a 3, which is 8 inches down. So I've got, 12, 4 and 8. 12, 12, 4 and 8. I'm just going to position them and we'll see what happens next turn if they're alive. Soviet turn 2, so in terms of movement, well, unpinning first. Everybody unpinned except the heavy mortars, even with the company command there to help them. These guys went, no. This is not World War One. We're not charging over there, and pulled back behind the hill. Kind of pointless, but they would just die if they kept going forward. I get the feeling that's what's going to happen with these guys as well. That's where the boats have ended up, right behind this lake, which means I can't take a direct move on to there, which is pretty enough. But there you go, that's the way it goes. The guys will machine gun them to death in the boats, and we'll see what happens after that. In terms of the other shooting, well, you've seen me showing some dice for the T-34s. The Pak 40s have all gone. This platoon's sitting in range of the Panzer 470Vs, but you know, I thought I'd just do what I can, get rid of those Pak 40s, and then I'll have some freedom of movement where I can use the town to shield myself to a degree. Or force the 74Vs to come forward. Anyway, the rest of the shooting, the mortars took a hit in the bombardment from my mortars, but it's saved, and then one of the heavy machine guns got killed by one of my heavy machine guns. So there's 2 pinned units there, but apart from that, it was really the loss of the Pak 40s for just one T-34, not so good. But in many other ways, I am in a bit of bother. Let's see what Brian can do for some more payback in turn 2. Brian's turn 2, so everything unpinned. He didn't do any movement. No movement required. So in terms of shooting, first of all, the Panzer 470Vs lasered them to death. They got 4 hits out of 6, which was quite good to be honest, in 5s. Killed 3 and bailed 1. The mortars managed to get 2 potential kills in here, but failed his firepower. So they were a bit lucky. The other mortars, heavy mortars, killed 2 more in my mortars, so they're getting slapped. Heavy machine guns stayed going to ground, as did the platoon beside them. And then these guys, well, they got millions of hits, to be honest. They got 9 hits, which is quite a lot, on these careful guys, you know. And 3 of them failed their saves. So, I'm getting nowhere fast, folks. We'll see if I can do anything in turn 3's reserves. I've not even arrived yet. So, over to my turn 3. Soviet turn 3. So in terms of unpinning, etc., everybody unpinned, remounted, except these guys did not. They're just getting slapped and don't like it. In terms of movement, first of all, you need a 3 to get the boat back. There, so they're stuck. I'll go over these guys in a minute. Over here I did some movement. These guys, survivors, moved around here, so they're at least out of line of sight. Brian will have to move to see them. 2 stay still, 2 moved. They all concentrated on the mortars, as did these guys. And all I managed to get out of a lot of shooting was 1 dead mortar. The heavy machine guns managed to kill a heavy machine gun in that house, which turned out to be fortuitous. So these guys got off the boats, went off that way with a follow me. It got them with an assault range. There was a total of 2, 4, 6, 8, 12 dice of his counterfire against them. They got 3 hits on me, and I failed 2 bloody saves. Failed 2 saves. So I lost 2 guys. Went in needing a 4 to hit, and got 2 misses. I got 3 and a 1. But even with the company command there, Brian managed to fail his counter-attack, and that happens so often with Germans for some reason. I see it all the time. So he broke off, and I've managed to just keep myself out of sight of everybody in that wood. He can come and get me though, but I forgot to mention those guys moving up now. So that might be a wee crack in the armour, but we'll see. Next turn Brian is rolling for reserves. German turn 3, everything unpinned. Heavy machine guns and mortars survived the last stand. And reserves. coming up the town there. It's very restricted field of fire, but probably want something to take on these tanks. Then in terms of movement, the platoon guarding the objective went off after my scouts. The Panzer IV 70s moved into firing position, and the guys who moved tried to dig in but didn't. Then in terms of shooting, the heavy mortars are just bullying them, another one dead. The light mortars, ordinary mortars, managed to kill another one. Heavy machine guns got, it's actually two hits. They needed quite a lot to hit. They were long range and cover. I got 2 hits on me, or 2 fails. And then these guys fired, I got 1 hit and 1 kill on there. And then these guys moved in for the assault. They lost 3 bases on the way in though. Then they rolled to hit 3 times, or twice, sorry, and killed 1. And then I motivated to counter-attack, even though I needed a 4 or a 5. I can't quite remember, but I managed it. I rolled a 2 and a 2 to hit. Then he rolled to counter-attack, he managed it. He rolled a 3 and a 2, and I rolled to counter-attack and I managed it. And I rolled a 1 and a 1. Then he managed to counter-attack again and missed again. And then I broke off and I couldn't get away. There was nowhere I could go because of the river. So those 2 bases have been captured and the scouts are dubbed. I'm not sure how I'm going to get anything done now, but I'm whittling them down. We'll see what happens in my turn 4. Soviet turn 4. So, I'm the guy who said I'm never going to use boats, but there's not much choice really. They've heard good things, good reports back about the scouts moving off safely into the distance. So the boats all made it back. I'm sure I've got enough anyway to get them over. But, and they're going to go over. I'm hoping they're going to be too busy killing tanks. Well, rather shooting at, but not killing tanks. In terms of movement. Big wad of troops heading up there, do not follow me. Well, in terms of unpinning, etc. Unpinned and stayed. Unpinned with some help from the company command. And then the movement, the guys moving up the T-34s. I could only get 1 platoon in range of the advancing Panzer IVs. So the other platoon stayed back to try and deal with the mortars. I wanted rid of those mortars, because then I can at least turn my mortars onto the defenders. And it took everything that could have fired my mortars, my heavies, my lights, my T-34s in the end. It was them who got the last one, but they're gone. The heavy machine guns open up again on the heavy machine guns. Could only see the one on the end of the bridge. Got 14 hits on it. And it's, I don't care. I'm fine. But these guys had to move up to get into range, but managed a hit and a kill. So that's something. I've just got to go over this river now and stay alive and hold off any counter-attacks once I do get over. So over to Brian. He's got 2 dice for reserves with plenty of Panzer Grenadiers left off table. Brian's turn 4. So heavy machine guns didn't unpin and then they ran away. Company commander wasn't close enough for a reroll. But he got reserves and he dashed up the road to this point here, ready to defend the objective and kill all these poor guys. He moved 1 Panzer IV up, another one to the Blitz to get into line of sight. And then in terms of shooting, started with the Panzer IVs and he managed to kill the company command. Tried to jump him over but failed. These infantry, apart from 1 base, had line of sight down here but only got 2 kills. The heavy mortars up the end there, I continued to bully these guys, there's only 1 left. And then the Panzer IV 70s managed to get 2 hits and a bail and a kill for those T-34s over there. So I'm running out of stuff. There'll be a mad assault going in, I think, in my next turn. We'll see what happens. German turn 5. It's getting critical now in terms of 8 inches proximity to an objective. So the guys unpinned and stayed. Everyone else unpinned, bailed in or whatever, I can't quite remember now. It's getting a bit of a blur. These guys all headed over the river in the following order. And in terms of shooting, this little guy managed to range in the house and got a pinned, which was handy for the upcoming assault. The other one, the heavy mortars ranged in the square. Got some hits. The heavy machine guns killed a base on the way in, before the assault, sorry. And then these guys managed to get another Panzer IV, which was quite lucky. But then in the assault, I took enough hits to pin me down, but I could only actually get 2 bases up in the assault because of that narrow entranceway. So that's something to remember, folks. If it is a constricted entranceway like that, you can really cause problems. I mean, these guys in this house prevented me from getting much further up than I was, which meant a 4-inch move only got me here. So it was difficult. I got pushed back. So I don't know what I'm going to do next. Brian will be rolling 3 dice for reserves, and he's still got 2 platoons to come on. I don't know how much pressure he's actually under. We shall see. Brian's turn 5. So everybody unpinned except the company command. Another platoon of Panzer Grenadiers has come on up that road. The infantry are actually in those houses. I just put them there because they're easier for you to see. The tanks are moved out of line of sight. They just need to defend there. These ones backed off. These dismounted, moved up. And in terms of shooting, over here it was quite brutal. Failed half my saves. 4 bases died. And over here it was a very similar story with 5 bases. 5 bases died. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 bases left there. So they're not going to do anything other than distract. These guys, if they'd have been in better condition, they maybe could have pushed over the river. But I don't know. We'll go over to what I think will be my last turn. See if I can actually push on through there. And at least try and contest the objective for this critical turn 6. But I don't have much left. Soviet turn 6. So the mortars ran away. Everything else had to unpinned. In terms of movement, these guys went, oh, well, follow me. He's going, guys, really? What the hell's going on here? And then my T-34 stayed still to shoot up the infantry defending the entrance to the bridge. I think you can probably tell by the number of my infantry bases left on the table how things went. I killed 1 base with fire on the way in. That's from everything. I went in for the assault. I actually managed to get more guys in this turn because I could come off here. But it made no difference. I got absolutely smashed to bits on the way in. Took about 9 hits. 4 bases died. And that was the end of that. The guys are still keeping me in the game, but I'm not in the game, folks. I have lost. So there you go. I'll come back for a recap and we can talk about the mission, the units that did well, and also talk about the flat tops, seeing as there you go, folks. A bit of a slapping for the Soviets there, unfortunately. But this is quite a tricky mission, I think. You know, your avenues of approach and advance are very narrow. It's hard to outflank something, so if you've got the likes of these guys who are vulnerable on the flanks, they can easily, with some decent terrain, easily move back and forward to get the best shots, and with a decent armour, stand up to a lot of fire. In this particular game, from the Soviet point of view, I went for here on the basis that I would get over the river and into the houses and withstand any attempts to kick me out. If I got over here, I'd be in the open and really quite vulnerable, especially if you imagine 2 platoons of Panzer Grenadiers driving on the table. But at the end of the day, that was almost impossible to get over. The defending infantry were right around the bridge, so it was very hard to deploy. So this side, I was able to deploy, even off the riverbank, able to deploy a lot more easily. So there's good and bad, but good and bad for each option, but I probably should have taken that one. And with regards to the boats, I made a mistake. When you roll for drift, the entire unit gets one roll, and they all move together, so you don't have this spread all over the shop. I just think that was a bit daft, that rule, but you know, I was going back to my old version 3 days with the landing craft, so I'm getting myself confused, version 3, version 4 again. So as far as the Soviets go anyway, I have to admit to not really knowing what I was doing in this game. I gave it a go. If I had my hero motor rifle formation, I've got less infantry but more artillery, that might have made a difference. We'll never know. On the German side, Brian did well with his deployment of his Panzer 470s. He made a good move taking that infantry platoon that was on that objective and bringing them over, because in the end they helped push back assaults that were going in here. He did that on the understanding that he had, first of all, them around the objective and these guys coming on from reserve. And it's quite an interesting list for the Germans here. It's got a lot of weak elements, but those weak elements allowed for the introduction of some good strong elements. 3 of these guys, 2 platoons of shot Panzer Grenadiers, 4 Panzer IVs. That's not too bad. It's quite an interesting list. It's a list that could probably do some attacking as well as defending. So, good one for Brian. I'm not going forever, but I'm sure the next game in this series of games doesn't have a river in it. At least I'm hoping it doesn't have a river in it. But there you go, folks. Thanks for watching. If you're a subscriber, thanks for subscribing. If you're not, please consider it. It'll help us build the channel and get us out to more people on YouTube. And stay tuned for the next one.